The map on your wall is lying to you. There is a country in the Horn of Africa with its own borders, its own army, and its own biometric democracy.
Yet on every official world map, it is swallowed by a neighboring state that cannot even secure its own capital.
You've likely been told Somaliland is a breakaway region or a separatist project. But by the end of this video, you will see 10 hard proofs that the world has spent 34 years maintaining a legal fiction that is now collapsing.
From a world-first iris scan voting system to a $250 million aid scandal that exposes the rot in Mogadishu, we are uncovering the truth. We will test Somaliland against the exact same laws used to define Germany, Japan, or the US. If it passes this test, then the country being erased isn't Somaliland, it's Somalia's claim over it. And our first piece of evidence begins before most of today's African borders even existed. At the moment, Somaliland was more recognized than the state that now claims to own it. You're watching True Frame. The 1960 independence. On June 26, 1960, the state of Somaliland was born. It wasn't a province, it was a fully sovereign nation recognized by 35 UN member states, including Israel and the United States. The mystery isn't how they became independent, but why they gave it up. Driven by a romantic vision of a greater Somalia, Somaliland voluntarily united with the Italian-ruled South 5 days later. The marriage was never signed. When Somaliland dissolved that union in 1991, they weren't seceding, they were simply returning to the independent status they held in 1960. But while legal logic should have been enough for a divorce, the world demanded a precedent, forgetting that Africa is already full of them. The Divorce Precedents. The African Union claims that recognizing Somaliland would break Africa. Yet they conveniently forget history. Egypt and Syria were one country for 3 years. Then they split to become independent sovereign states. Senegal and Gambia united. Then they separated. Even Mali and Senegal tried a union that lasted only 2 months. In every one of those cases, the international community recognized the separation without hesitation. Framing Somaliland as a rebel region while treating the Senegal-Gambia split as legal is the ultimate double standard. It leaves Mogadishu acting like a toxic ex who refuses to sign the divorce papers, while the relationship turned from a disagreement into a bloodbath. The Isaaq Genocide. The reason Somaliland can never return to Mogadishu isn't just about politics, it's about survival. In the 1980s, the Siad Barre regime launched a campaign to erase the people of the north. Tens of thousands were slaughtered, and the city of Hargeisa was 90% destroyed, bombed by its own national air force. This wasn't a civil war, it was a genocide. Recognition for Somalilanders is an insurance policy against a repeat of that horror. But even after losing everything, they didn't ask for a handout. Instead, they built something that most recognized nations still struggle to achieve. The iris scan democracy. While the rest of the world debates voter ID, Somaliland quietly became the first country on Earth to use world-leading biometric iris scanning for its national elections. Think about the contrast. In Somalia, citizens just started to vote their leaders directly for the first time in 2026. Until now, the elections were conducted through an indirect, clan-based system where the average citizen has no vote.
In the absence of a functioning state, the voting system is based on a power-sharing formula. Somalia's 4 biggest clans have an equal number of parliamentary seats, while smaller clans share half the allocation given to the larger clans. Voting takes place over 2 rounds at the Mogadishu hangar, which African Union peacekeeping troops already in the country have been asked to protect.
Whereas in Somaliland, there have been 6 peaceful one-man, one-vote elections for more than 3 decades. They are a democratic outlier in a region that has witnessed its fair share of dictators. This level of organization requires a sophisticated state machinery that Mogadishu simply does not possess. Yet the recognized government is the one currently drowning in a sea of stolen aid.
The aid reliant versus self-sufficient. For 30 years, billions in international aid have been poured into Somalia. Where does it go? In 2024, the FBI uncovered the Feeding Our Future scandal in Minnesota, a $250 million fraud scheme, the largest in U.S. history, linked to a network of Somali community leaders. Millions meant for hungry children were allegedly laundered into luxury real estate in East Africa. The UN agencies have been vocal about multiple scandals associated with the embezzlement of international aid. While tax and aid dollars are being skimmed by a corrupt elite in Mogadishu, Somaliland has been frozen out of the World Bank and IMF. They have built their own roads, schools, and their navy with zero international debt. They are self-sufficient because they have to be. And that self-sufficiency has created a security barrier even the world's most powerful militaries envy. The security oasis. Somalia remains a home base for al-Shabaab despite 30,000 foreign troops on its soil. Yet, if you cross the border into Somaliland, the terror threats vanish. With no foreign military aid and no AMISOM troops, Somaliland has kept its territory 100% clear of terror cells. The government don't just claim security, it provides it for its citizens. If a state is defined by its ability to hold a monopoly on the use of force, then Somaliland is a state, and Somalia is a green zone surrounding a single airport. This reality makes the claim of one Somalia feel less like a policy and more like a hallucination. The political hallucination. Mogadishu's claim over Somaliland is what analysts call a political hallucination. The federal government can barely exercise authority over its own regions like Puntland or Jubaland, which frequently suspend ties with the capital. If you cannot control a province 50 miles from your office, claiming a country 500 miles away isn't an act of sovereignty, it's simply daydreaming. Even the African Union's own experts reached this conclusion decades ago, though their report might still be buried in the headquarters. The Shelved verdict. In 2005, an AU fact-finding mission visited Hargeisa and released a report that should have ended this debate. They concluded that Somaliland's search for recognition was unique and self-justified, and that it wouldn't open a Pandora's box of secession across Africa because the borders were already colonial. The AU ignored its own experts to satisfy the interests of third parties like Egypt and Djibouti. They chose political convenience over legal truth. But as the geopolitical map shifts, a new group of nations is finally refusing to keep the secret. The Taiwan and Israel's move. The silence was broken by Taiwan in 2020 and Israel in late 2025. These aren't just random alliances. They are a strategic axis of middle powers that value functional democracy over bureaucratic fiction. By recognizing Somaliland, these nations are signaling that in the 2026 Red Sea era, paper sovereignty is useless. What matters is who controls the port, who secures the coast, and who can be trusted with an intelligence partnership. This leads us to the final, indisputable test of statehood. The one law, even the UN cannot rewrite. The Montevideo Checklist. Under the 1933 Montevideo Convention, a state only needs 4 things: a permanent population, a defined territory, a functioning government, and the capacity to enter relations. Somaliland has checked all 4 for 34 years. Somalia, for much of that time, couldn't check even 2. By international law, Somaliland isn't asking to be a country. It is simply waiting for the world to admit that it already is one.
The map on your wall might still show one Somalia, but on the ground, the Union is a ghost. The era of the invisible nation is over. The question is, who will be the next to put a stop to the hallucination? Are the proofs convincing enough, or do you still believe Somaliland is part of Somalia? The AU's condemnation of Somaliland's recognition, is it principle-based or profit-driven? Tell us what you think in the comments. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more deep dives on True Frame. See you in the next video.